Hey everybody, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today we're going to be checking out the etrailer.com Universal Brake Controller Install Kit. And we're just going to kind of cover how this works, what it does, and some of the common problems that people run into whenever trying to figure out if this kit is going to be what they need. Oftentimes we get a lot of questions, people wondering, how do I convert a 4-way flat type trailer connector to a round 7-way type connector? Or how do I get a brake controller on my vehicle? And it's really just going to depend on what you're trying to accomplish. And so what we'll start with first is just talking about converting your 4-way to a 7-way. And we're gonna start with that because it's the most simple and straightforward. And after that, we'll talk about choosing a brake controller and how everything is gonna work with this particular kit. So let's say maybe you have a 4-way flat type connector like this one and you're looking to convert it to the round one like this here. If that's your case, this kit might not be right for you. And I say that only if you're only needing certain outputs. So let's say you're not planning on using a brake controller, or you don't need 12-volt power back here, you just need your lights, your tail lights, your brake lights, and your turn signals. Many times you can pick up something similar to this that just plugs into your existing 4-way and converts it to this. Now keep in mind, if that's what you do, you're only going to get those lighting signals. On the other hand, let's say if you're trying to do that, but you want a 12-volt auxiliary power back here, and your trailer does not have trailer brakes. So pop-up campers are a lot of times a good example of that. They won't have trailer brakes because they're relatively small, but they'll have batteries on them. And those batteries, if you wire everything up right, you can actually charge them while you're towing. So that particular kit, if that's what you're trying to accomplish, is the etrailer.com RV upgrade kit, the 7-way RV upgrade kit. It's very similar to this, just comes with a few less things. That'll also work with wireless brake controllers. So the Kurt Echo, for example. Those are getting real popular. Those will plug in. All they need is that 12-volt power and your classic, tail lights, brake lights, turn signals, things of that nature. So pretty straightforward there. If that's what you're trying to get done, that's worth looking into. Now, with that said, if you're looking to have all the signals back here, your lighting signals, your 12-volt auxiliary power, as well as your electric brake output for using a brake controller, then this kit is the one that I'm going to recommend. And I say that because it's going to come with, in most cases, every vehicle is a little bit different, it's going to come with almost all the stuff that you're going to need to allow you to hook up that brake controller inside of your vehicle and get it working. When it comes time to actually put a brake controller in the car and you're figuring out everything you're going to need, every vehicle is going to be set up a little bit different. So I'm just going to kind of speak generally here, but this will cover most people's situations. So it's not always, you're not always going to need this kit to accomplish getting a brake controller in your vehicle. It's just going to depend on your particular vehicle. So for example, let's say if your vehicle has a factory 7-way already at the back, okay? So a connector like this, but it was there from the factory. Chances are really, really good you're going to have a brake controller plug underneath of your dash somewhere. And if you have that plug, a lot of times all you're going to have to do is pick out a brake controller, and the majority of the time they have a plug-and-play connector as well. So it'll plug into the back of your brake controller. The other end will have the same style of connector that'll plug into the one underneath the dash. You mount this up and you're done. But just because your vehicle doesn't have a factory 7-way at the back doesn't mean that you don't have that factory tow package. So on some of the more late model cars especially, sometimes you can pull a panel down and there will be a trailer connector back there. If something is offered similar to this that plugs directly into that connector, you can always get the 7-way custom fit for your car, plugs into that. And if you look under the dash and have one of those connector plugs like that, chances are really good. Essentially, you can just do what we talked about. Find a brake controller and the custom adapter plug right in, and you'll be good to go. I'd say that's probably half the vehicles out there that I've had experience with. The other half that don't have that, that's where things kind of start to get interesting, and that's where a kit like this is going to get the job done. So in order for this to work, you're going to have an existing 4-way flat type trailer connector at the back of your vehicle, whether it's a factory one or one that you picked up here from eTrailer. It'll work as long as you have this connector and the signals going to it. This will plug into that. And then this kit's going to come with the wires and the breakers and all that other stuff you need to be able to get power and an electric brake output to your actual brake controller. That way everything will function. The brake controller will have the power it needs, the brake signal it needs, as well as be able to actually send power to your trailer whenever you hit the brakes in here. Our Jeep here today is a great example of where this universal brake controller install kit came into play. So this came into the shop, didn't have anything like that. No trailer wiring, not even a hitch, no brake controller. We set that all up, being able to utilize this kit, as well as some other parts. You know, I put the 4-way flat on and everything else. So now we have a functioning brake controller that's got to work. And in this particular case, it's a red arc brake controller. All right. There's many options out there. You have your traditional style ones like this. That's at least what I call them, where you mount them up. This is a Takancha P3. But, you know, you might be wondering, okay, now I know I need this kit. Is it going to work with my particular brake controller? What brake controller should I get? With the exception of a few oddballs, this kit is going to provide all the signals necessary to be able to allow those brake controllers to work. Like I said, with the exception of a couple oddball ones and like the wireless ones, like I talked about, the Kurt Echo, that only requires a 12-volt power source. Regardless on what type of brake controller you get, chances are really good that this kit is going to give all the necessary signals to be able to power it up and have it do its thing. Now that we hopefully kind of cleared up a couple of things and let you know if this kit is going to work for you or not, let's just kind of talk about what it's going to come with and how it's going to be able to do its thing. So first and foremost, you'll have the connector, right? And this is going to go up to the back of your car. It is going to have a bracket that comes included, and I really like this one because when you mount this up, you're going to retain your 7-way round, or add it rather, but you'll also have this 4-way flat too, so you kind of have the best of both worlds there. You don't have to, if you got two trailers, you know, let's say your big trailer with the brakes on it and then maybe a small jet ski or utility trailer, you don't have to bother with getting an adapter to bring it down to 4-way. So that's pretty cool. You know, I said earlier, for the most part, in many cases, it's going to come with everything you need. I'm going to do my best here to kind of come across some relatively common situations that we run into, and everything's going to be different. So if your hitch doesn't have a bracket on it where you can mount this one up to, or you don't have a good spot, you know, right, a piece of steel under the car where you can just bolt this right up, many times you can get a no-drill long bracket, all right, and that's going to clamp to your hitch, come out, and allow you to bolt this up to that. So something to think about there. But how this is going to work here, so that'll plug into your existing 4-way, okay, at the back of your car. You're going to have your auxiliary power, that's this black one. This yellow one will be for reverse light circuit if you need that. A lot of times you don't even bother with it because you don't need it, so it just depends on your situation. Then you'll have your electric brake output. So this is where the brake controller power is going to run through and go back to your trailer, and then your ground. So in order to get this all the way up to the front here, you're going to have 25 foot of this duplex wiring. This stuff is nice and thick. It's 10 gauge wire. It's more than capable of handling the amperage and the current that is going to be drawn. And I like how it's sheathed. You know, it's easier to route and kind of extra protected in my opinion. With that said, 25 foot is going to cover almost every vehicle. Occasionally we'll run into where we need to buy or need to pick up a few more feet of it. So like big express work vans or real long trucks and stuff like that. So think about that. You can always grab it by the foot here at eTrailer if you need to. But that power is going to run up and come up to your circuit breakers. And essentially these, you know, are more or less like a fuse. If there's a short or something like that, these are going to trip and cut power, and that way you don't, you know, burn anything up or fry anything. So yeah, this will, the wires will come up to these. They get power from your battery, and then they run inside of the vehicle, or you can get them hooked up to the back of your brake controller. It is going to come with 3 different circuit breakers. Usually we'll only use 2. The 40 amp one will be for power, and then depending on your trailer brake controller, what one you use, you'll either use the 20 amp or the 30 amp. And go from there. And you can find what the manufacturer trailer brake controller recommends in the instructions. This kit is going to come with a bunch of ins and outs that you need to get everything set up. All your self-tapping screws to mount everything up, your ring terminals to connect to your wires and hook up to your breakers and things of that nature. They're going to have some quick splice connectors, which we'll get to in a minute, for your brake light signal, as well as a test light to find that signal. Handful of zip ties and just all these little things that you kind of seem to forget about and overlook when you're going through an installation like this. One of the things personally I would like to see though, and it's not a huge deal by any means, I just want to mention it because I'm trying to just tell you what I would do and what I usually do when I'm installing these. So on this end here where our 7-way is, it has these pre-attached butt connectors. I'll usually end up cutting these off and replacing them with heat shrink style ones. And that's because with this usually living outside underneath the vehicle, it's more prone to corrosion. And the heat shrink ones seal up the ends real good and just help prevent any corrosion from starting in the first place. Not to say these don't work, because they do. They're just fine. You know, I'd probably tape them up real good, but if you'd like to change out to these, unless you plan on hooking up your reverse light, you're only going to need 2. So some cheap insurance to make sure that this continues to work. Just get a little peace of mind there. One of the big questions a lot of people wonder is how to find a brake light signal, okay? Because in order for everything to work, your brake controller, it has to have a brake signal. So when you push down on the brake pedal, it sends power to it and lets it know you're applying the brakes. And every vehicle's set up a little bit different. We have a lot of great install videos here that we've done in the past, and chances are really good. If you don't have your exact vehicle, we have something very similar that you can check out and at least get some guidance and maybe a little more insight there. But to help figure that out when you're putting this on, the kit does come with a test light, which is this here. So the way this will work, this little clip here, you'll connect that to ground, so a metal part on the body of your vehicle. Usually under the dash, you can use some of the metal framing that's under there, or a bolt that comes through the firewall, something along those lines. And whenever this, then you test your wire, you just very carefully back probe it or just barely push into it, make sure you're into the actual wire though. And whenever there's power applied, this light will illuminate red, letting you know that power's going through. So to find that, just as a general guide, if you look at your brake pedal and follow the brake pedal arm up a little ways, usually there's a switch up there. And you know, 2, 4, 5 wires coming off of it. And one of those will be the cold side of the brake switch, the one you need to tie into. So you can take this, ground it, carefully touch the back of those terminals, and what you're trying to do when you're touching it, push down on the brake pedal. You're looking for the one that has power only when you're pushing down on the brake pedal, and then you can use one of the quick slices into the kit to be able to tie into it. Being that I've touched on a few things install related, I figured I'd just elaborate a little bit more because we get a lot of questions about it. I'm not gonna lie, generally speaking, this kit is relatively involved. You know, it's just one of those things. It's not so much that it's complicated. For the most part, it's just time consuming, you know, running wires and going through all that. But hopefully there's a video out there on your vehicle that will kind of make that a little bit easier if this is something you decide to tackle on your own. But other than that, at the end of the day, you know, hopefully this cleared a few things up in regards to how to hook up brake controllers or figure out what wiring you need and things of that nature. So if your vehicle does not come equipped with that factory tow package, this is going to be a great solution for you to get you up and going and get your brake controller working. And that'll finish up our look at of the etrailer.com Universal Brake Controller Install Kit.